To get started on Lesson 3, you should have downloaded the Lesson 3 folder with all of the information inside of it. Let's jump into Adobe Illustrator, and this time we're going to start by creating a document from scratch. To do this, let's go up to File and down to New, and you'll be greeted with the New Document dialog box. Now, by default, there are a bunch of pre-made and pre-existing sizes that you could choose from, but in our case, we want to make one completely from scratch. The title of this, so we're going to choose the preset default settings, is going to be Adventure Logo, and be sure to put your name on it as well. The width of it, make sure we're measuring in inches, and we're going to set the width to be 8 inches wide and also 8 inches tall. The orientation can be kept at portrait even though it's square, and we only need one artboard. Now, everything else we can keep exactly the same because we don't necessarily need to change this up. When we say create, this will give us our new document to work from. Now, if you're greeted with the saving your document, you can save it to your computer. Don't try to save it to the cloud. Now, if you haven't done so already, you can also go up to View, make sure we're working in the Essentials workspace, and I'm going to turn off my contextual taskbar just to get it out of the way for now. Now, if you want to draw using basic shapes, all of the basic shapes are found towards the top middle of your toolbox, and if you click and hold, you can see there's a variety of different shapes we can choose from. With the shape selected, there's two ways you can make it. Like I said, you can click and drag and draw off a simple rectangle, or you can click once anywhere on your design, and this will open up a dialog box that'll let you type in a specific size. So if I want mine to be exactly 2.3 inches by 1.3 inches, we can say OK, and it types in and creates that one. Now, once you have objects created, if you do want to precisely change the size of them, use your selection tool. Let's go up to View and make sure your Smart Guides are checked on. When you click on the first rectangle that you create, you can hover over the bottom edge of it and then drag down, and notice that this changes the height. We want our heights to be exactly 4.6 inches tall. So I'm going to drag all the way down to 4.6. Now, if yours is off by a little bit, that's okay. Now, another way we can change or dial in a specific measurement is by using our Properties panel. With the object selected, you can go over to your Properties panel, and inside the Transform is where you can see the width and the height. Now, right now, pay attention to whether these are linked or not linked. You want to make sure that they're not linked together. That way I can type in a specific width for this. In our case, the width is going to be 2.9 inches. And when I hit return, you can see it'll automatically lock in that specific width. Some other changes you can see with your selection tool involve rotation. At any time, you can click outside of the corner of your bounding box and rotate it. And if you hold down the Shift key, it'll make it easier to rotate it in 45-degree increments all the way down to 270 degrees. Now I'm going to move my little things over here. And since we're creating a little bear, let's choose this to be the head of it. Let's place it right about here on top of them. With our smaller rectangle selected, go back over to your Properties panel and locate the appearance of it. Let's change the fill value to be a dark brown. And let's set the stroke value to not have an outline by making the outline of this be 0 point. We'll do the same with the larger one. Select the larger rectangle, set your fill value to be the same brown, and then set your stroke value to be 0. This time I'm going to use the down arrows until it completely disappears. Going back and selecting the larger area, notice that we have some little dots that appear just on the inside of our bear or our rectangle selection. These are known as our live corner widgets. When you click on them, you can drag inward, and this will round off those particular corners. If we drag all the way in, you can see how it matches them to the size of that diameter. Let's do the same for the smaller one as well. This time we're going to click and just drag a little bit. Now, if you're using the black arrow selection tool, notice that they all change at the same time. If you wanted to change the curvature of just one individual point, let's choose the direct selection tool. With the direct selection tool, this time, let's click on the first little corner here. Notice that this path is selected and only we have this one individual anchor point. Let's drag this one back up to be a solid point. Then we can click on this bottom point down here. Let's also make that a solid point. Let's click on the bottom right-hand side and let's round that off a lot. And we can keep that just a little bit rounded right there. The direct selection tool allows you to round off individual points and individual edges of any particular object that you have. Next, with our black arrow tool, let's select our large bare body. We'll go up to Edit and we'll make a copy of it. Then one more time, we'll go up to Edit and we'll paste that copy down here. Whoops, zoom back out. I'm going to drag this down here so we can see it a little bit better. With our copy selected, one more time, go to your Properties panel and click on the little three dots to have more options for these properties on how we can transform it. Down at the very bottom, here is where you can dial in the radius of whatever area that you want for the roundedness of your rectangle. Let's unlink this one. And for the rightmost values with it unlinked, let's set their values to be 0. Notice that when we did that, these bottom two edges become straight. One more time, let's open up our properties. And let's set the leftmost values to be 1 inch for each one of those. And let's change their type to be the chamfer type. This will completely blunt off those edges. Finally, with our black arrow selection tool, let's drag this in to be a little bit more narrow. Notice that as we do this, it keeps everything nice and at a 45-degree angle and at the same length. All right, we'll leave that there for now. I'm going to zoom back up to here. Next, let's make an eye for the little bear. Click and hold on your rectangle tool and choose the ellipse tool. I'm going to hold down the Shift key while I click and drag to create a perfect little circle. Now, notice that it picked up the same color that I was using last time, which was just the black. If we want to swap this back over to the default fill stroke of white and black, you can press this key or you can press the D key to automatically select it and change it back over. Now with it filled in with white and a black outline, we want to swap both of those by clicking here and it swaps out both the values, and you can see how they're swapped out here as well too. Going over to our appearance panel, let's set the stroke value for the outline of it to be 19 points. Now we can use our selection tool, the black arrow, and move it into place, and you can see that it's way too big. So let's scale it down. Notice that when I do this, however, the eye, the stroke around the eye at least, doesn't scale along with it. So we want to be able to have this scale too. So let's undo what we did. This time, going back over to our transform panel, click on the options and tell it to scale the stroke and effects as well too. Now when you click and drag on the eye edge, the eye stroke also drags down too. Let's place it nice here towards the center of our little head. With the object selected, let's hit Command and the plus sign to zoom into it to see it a little bit better. Also with it selected, let's change how this stroke is going to align itself to the circle. By clicking on the stroke name, we can change how we want the align stroke to be. In this case, we want to align it to the outside edge. This way we can see the circle a little bit better, and the white line is now drawn on the outside of that vector path. To make an ear, let's also use our ellipse tool. So one more time, with the ellipse tool selected, I'm going to go down to my stroke and fill properties, either down there or actually let's go over here. With this selected, let's turn off the stroke by choosing this option, which automatically selects it to be none. We can click and drag and hold Shift to get a perfect circle. This time, in order to cut the circle in half, we can click on the little pi radius and drag this downward. We can also click on this one and drag it upward. Now to get it to cut perfectly in half, with everything still selected, we can go over to our properties and click on More. And then let's choose our two different values. The first value can be 90 degrees, and the second value can be 270 degrees. Next, let's go to Fill, make it a little lighter color, and then we can use our selection tool to click on the middle of it and drag it right here. Maybe we'll rotate it just a little bit to make it look cuter. Let's zoom out now by doing Command and 0 to fit everything to our screen. Next, let's choose our Line Segment tool. The Line Segment tool obviously allows you to click and drag and draw lines. Notice that when you hold down the mouse, it'll give you a preview of the direction and the length that you want it to be. If you hold down the Shift key, it'll constrain it to 45-degree increments. So let's make one go straight across and be about 1/2 of an inch long. And if yours is off by a little bit, that's okay. With it still selected, let's go over to our stroke properties. Let's set the width of this to be 90 points, and the color of it needs to match the color of your bear. Now, since these are meant to be his feet, let's choose our selection tool. We'll click and drag it over to here and rotate it 90 degrees till it fits nicely underneath him. You can use your arrow keys to also nudge it directly into place. To quickly make a copy of this, hold down the Option key if you're on a Mac or the Alt key if you're on the keyboard, and click on the path and then drag to the right to make a copy of it. Now let's draw a polygon. Selecting your line segment, choose the Polygon tool. We need to reset everything back to the default of black and white. And let's click and drag and draw a simple little polygon. With it still selected, let's set the fill color to be a light brown. And let's set the stroke value to be 0 so that there's no stroke at all. Now you can see when you created your polygon, by default it made a little 6-sided polygon. If you want to change the number of sides, you can click this and drag it up until it creates a nice little triangle. We're going to use this to turn it into some toes. So let's zoom in, choose your black arrow selection tool, and let's scale it down. Be sure to hold the Shift key when you do this to make sure everything is nice and proportional. Let's drag it to the front edge of his foot, maybe a little bit smaller, right about there. We want that top edge to be nice and aligned. And to round this off, actually I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to nudge this up. So there we go. Now it's aligned to the bottom. To round off just this edge, use your white arrow selection tool, click on this anchor point, and then drag it inward to round it off. In order to make a copy of this, we can select our object now. Let's go up to Edit and Copy. This time when we paste it, let's do Paste in Front. It pasted a copy, but this time it's directly on top of it. Now we can simply drag it over to the other side till we can see it here. When we zoom back out, our bear is coming along nicely. Finally, let's add a little tail to him using the star tool. Clicking on the polygon, choose the star. This time, when you click and drag, notice that it creates a star. Keep holding your mouse down. Use the up arrow to add a few more points to it. Up arrow will add, and the down arrow will delete them away. With your mouse still held down, you can hold down the the Command key, and you can adjust the distance of the number of points here. Finally, when you hold down the Shift key, it'll straighten out the look of your star, and you can let go of your mouse. With it selected, one more time, let's change its fill color to match the color of the bear's body. Let's drag it using our selection tool into place and make it a little bit smaller. We'll have it fit right up there at the top of his booty. Up until now, every time we draw something in normal mode, it automatically draws everything and places it usually on top of whatever we drew last. Sometimes, however, we want to be able to draw inside of individual objects. Let's select the head of our bear, and with it selected, go down to the very bottom of your tool panel and locate this icon. Draw normal is what we've been working with. Draw inside with your object selected puts a little bounding box around whatever object you have selected. Now let's draw off a nose and a mouth. Going back over to our shapes, choose the ellipse tool. Let's set our fill color to be a solid black. And let's draw an ellipse over here inside of the top of his nose. When you let go, you can see how that automatically clips inside of that object. If you need to make adjustments to it, you can still click on the nose and resize it and replace it right where it needs to be. We can do the same when drawing the mouth. One more time, let's choose the line segment tool. This time, let's swap over the color to be no fill and just a black outline. And let's set the stroke value to be 2 point. From here, we'll draw a little mouth, starting from the inside to the outside, and you can see how it works all its way through. When you're done drawing on the inside of this, let's go back over to our drawing mode and choose Draw Normal to deselect it. You can even cut and paste objects inside of here. Let's choose our little chamfered object. Let's change its fill color to be something a little bit lighter. With it selected, let's go up to Edit, and we're going to cut it away. Now let's select the bear's body. With the body selected, let's go back into Draw Inside mode. Then we can go to Edit and Paste. Notice that it's pasted inside of this area, and you can click and drag and draw it around where it needs to be. Once it's inside, we can deselect it, and then go back to normal drawing mode to see it fit nicely. Now, with it placed inside of here, notice that you can no longer select the darker brown area outside. You have to click on the objects that are inside of this. This means that this object has been isolated inside of this area. In order to unisolate it or to edit the mask that it's inside of, select the center portion, go to the bottom of your Properties panel, and choose Isolate Mask. This will allow you to click on the objects inside of it and then drag it down to where it needs to be. Let's bring him down to be right about here on the lower portion of his belly. Once you're finished, you can back out of the isolated group to continue editing. Finally, let's put our legs behind everything. I'm going to select just my legs by clicking and dragging over and doing a marquee selection. Let's go up to Object. You can go down to Arrange, and let's send it to the back. Now that they're behind there, that looks a little bit more natural. If you haven't done so already, let's go up to File and Save. Make sure we're going to save it as, and you know where it's going to go to, so we want to make sure it's in the Lesson 3 folder and do Save. If asking for the Illustrator options, we can say OK.